Right, let's have a look. The 1901 Baldwins. Are there still things left to be said? Yeah, I think there are. Firstly, there's a whole heap of footage, so that makes a separate episode for the 1901s worthwhile. Secondly, there's a heap of photographs from the NZRLS archives. Thirdly, of course, they, along with the 1901s from Sharp Stewart, represent the pinnacle of specialist passenger locomotives in New Zealand. Did they suffer from that needless class identification thing? Yes, they did. If you look at the 1902 locomotive returns, you can see that they're all classified U. Interestingly, the Glasgow built engines are classified U English, which sounds odd today and was possibly odd back then too. In the 1903 returns, and as a result of the Sharp Stewarts entering service, all of the then existing American types were classified UB. Why shop Baldwin again? Well, practical reasons. Baldwin could deliver. The sentiment was clearly to the mother country. The year previous, the order to Sharp Stewart had been made for a further 10 locomotives, even though the 1899 Sharp Stewarts weren't particularly stellar. The order to Baldwin was made to reflect the fact that Sharp Stewarts would take longer to deliver, and the Sharp Stewart locomotives came into service about 6 months after the 1901 Baldwins, even though they had been ordered a year before the 1901 Baldwins. How did they compare with earlier TCAR types? Let's see, they had an uprated boiler pressure, so too did the Sharp Stewarts. It might have been the decision was made to uprate the boiler pressure on the Baldwins because the 1898s, with essentially the same boiler, it could have been felt that since they were so freestanding, they could have supported the higher boiler pressure. That higher boiler pressure gave a higher tractive effort, which meant that the 1901 Baldwins were a frankly better locomotive than the 1898s. Are there any left? They're in the category of living on in our thoughts. Do they have any historical significance? They, as I said before, represent the pinnacle of specialist, high-drivered, narrow firebox, simple express passenger locomotives, along with the 1901 Sharp Stewarts. High-drivered is, of course, by the New Zealand definition. In North America, for instance, driving wheels of this diameter would be classified as freight-only locomotives. Did they get any mods and cons, and why are you calling it mods and cons when it's clearly mod cons? I don't know why I'm calling it that, just am. They got superheated, which is not unexpected. They lasted through to the 1950s and ended up having to do shunting duties, so they got a tender cab, they got a cowcatcher on the rear of the tender cab, they got a second sand dome, all of which befits a locomotive that spends nearly as much time in reverse as it does in forward. Did they last well in service? Yeah, I mean, they lasted from 1901, and here's the earliest photograph I could find, through to, with the last two examples, 1957, and here's the latest photograph I could find. They served in that first tier service, even though they entered service at the same time as the Q-class Passchendaels, but being lighter, they had a higher route availability than the Passchendaels. They then served in secondary service on lines like the Central Otago line, and in the montage you'll see a number of photographs from that region. When the Otera Tunnel opened, they were transferred en masse along with the UC class to the West Coast, where they spent the balance of their long career. And yes, it's time for a musical montage. Once again, thank you to the NZRLS archives for everything they do, including collating a magnificent collection of locomotive photos. Like, subscribe, enjoy. Cheers.